This is a general presentation of the Uniflex 2000 system, and we hope you will find it beneficial to helping you understand the system. We're not doing this with a script, we're just kind of doing it on the fly and going to try to quickly cover some of the aspects of the operation of the system for you in a show and tell fashion rather than having to read um, lots of stuff from the manual. Hopefully show and tell works better than sitting and reading. This is the run screen that you will see when your system is in the run mode. And up at the top you will find that there are 5 boxes, and by taking your mouse and clicking on the gray area, or with your touchscreen touching any of the gray area, will open the box. Now we're recording this in 640-480 mode so everyone can use it on their computer systems. So you may find some of the screen slightly cut off. We'll try to elongate it as much as possible to allow you to see everything. But each one of these boxes opens up a keypad button selection that has your typical 0 through 9 keypad over here. The 3 dashes is for clear. And then over in the left-hand portion, you have your command execute buttons, which will load or save or do a directory or show you the next free combination file, etc. So, for example, if you wanted to see what the next free combination file would be, that would show up over here in the what we call the staging area. Now, all of these different button boxes are explained in the operation manual, so we won't go into a lot of detail here. We'll just basically show you operation. If you want to do a directory and find out what combination files you have on your system, and bear in mind that this is a test system, so there's going to be a lot of garbage files in here that you won't normally have on your system, but this will show you a directory of all the different files. Now you can see that we have a 1, 2, and a 3, and so then the next one would be 7, so there's a gap of 4, 5, and 6 in this particular area, which is why it showed that C4 would be our next free combination file. So if we brought up C4 and we were to come over here and save that, then we would save the combination file as C4, and then if we did another directory, we would see that now there is a C4 between C3 and C7, and it was created on this date. And to clear that number, you press the 3 dashes, and that clears the staging number, and you can type in any number you want here from your, or punch in any number here. For example, if you wanted to save combination 22, you would hit the 2 twice, and then that would be you could either load or save from this point, and you could load it if it existed, and as it is, there was a C22, so you could load that, and so on and so forth. So that's generally the application of the keypad boxes. And you'll see that if we do the play, then we have a similar keypad with the numbers over here, and the commands are over here. Now, pause and Option A and Option B do not work in any of these panels where they are listed, primarily in the record and play. Option A and Option B are for future use, and they are not defined at this time. Close this box and go over to record, and you'll see that it's a very similar pad, except this time it gives you buttons for recording and directory of tracks and finish and Option A, Option B, etc. The crescendo keypad and the piston sequencer depend on if your system is set up to set crescendo from the stop keys. On a lot of the upgrade systems, that's not set up, and we will go into how to do that in a subsequent AVI presentation. But if your system is new, then it has been set up to allow you to set the crescendo from the stop tabs on the console. And there is quite a dedicated section on how to do that in the operation manual. So we won't go into that here. You can read about how to do that and experiment in your own time with how to set up the crescendo. Same with the piston sequencer. However, the piston sequencer is primarily used on classical instruments that are set up for a piston sequencer. We will present another AVI that goes into how to set up one of these if you would like to experiment with this on your particular instrument and go into the setup and operation of the piston sequencer. So we'll close that, and close this button, close that box, and then we're back to our main screen. Now in the second part of the screen, or the center section of the screen, we have some information up here. This is the scanner. This is a scan rate of how fast or slow the system is scanning your particular console. And your scan rate may show up slower than this because you may have a much larger definition file or a much larger organ, and the scan rate is dependent on how many input boards you have in your console and how many inputs it has to scan. So this will typically run from about 90, maybe 85, up to 200, 220. As long as your scan rate does not fall below 70, then you are fine. Our largest console, which is the Chicago Stadium Barton console, which is 6 manuals and 840 stops, I believe, scans that, and a second console that it has with it. There's 2 consoles on that particular instrument, and that scans at about 79 scans a second. So your scan will probably be in the mid hundreds to 200, and that's fine. Delay and reset and scan, these these bits of information here are primarily for diagnostics and don't have any particular use in normal operation. And so we're not going to spend the time explaining them, but if you were to have a scanning problem, then we would ask you for, what this information is showing on your machine. But for the most part, you could ignore it. Over here we have the runtime. This is how long the system has been up and running on your computer since you started the program, and that's just real time. And then so that's about everything you need to know on that line. The next line down is information about where the files are and what the files that are loaded are. You'll find that everything in the relay system is in a directory called Uniflex on the C hard drive. And then this is where the main files for the system are, and then the slash and general, these are the user files that are or subdirectories under Uniflex that exist for your system. And generally, if you have more than one user, then it will always show you what the current user is. And in general, when the system starts up, it will always default to the Uniflex general user file. That's where the general organ definition and combination actions are found. Any new users that you add to the system would be created with the new user command. That's explained in the manual, and then those would then create additional subdirectories under the Uniflex main folder. And in those files, they could contain multiple definition and multiple combination files. Now, when the system starts up, it defaults to Uniflex General, and it automatically loads the D1 and C1 files, but we've changed that. So if we go over here and go to the combination and bring up combination 1, and we load that, close it, then you'll see now we're back to combination action file C1. And it also generally shows you what file combination is loaded up here. So this is redundant information. But at a quick glance, you can see where you are in the system by looking at this current user line, and that will tell you the directory you're in, the definition file, and combination file that are loaded. Center portion of this box is the Record Play Studio. And you'll notice that when you go to the stop mode, that information is blanked out. And it tells you the organ has stopped, record and play are inactive. So it covers them up so you can't, you're stopped. You can't do anything. You can't run, you can't record, you can't play. Go back to the run mode, and you'll notice that studio status says we're idle, and if it was recording, it would show that we were recording a track number, and if we were playing, it would show that we were playing a track number, and if it was playing, it would also show the song title if one was provided. Over here is the tempo, and tempo was always at 120 when starting a file. And you can modify the tempo, you can change it on the fly temporarily, and then when the song finishes, it will return to standard tempo 120. In the manual, there is information on how to permanently set a new tempo into a track. And when that track were to play, it would show the tempo that it was set to play at, which would be either higher or lower than 120. If it was a normal track that tempo was not modified, it would always show up as tempo 120. Down here in the lower portion of this segment of the screen are indicator lamps that basically show you system status at any particular time. When anything is lit or colored, it means that it is active. When it is gray or non-lit, it is inactive. So we can see that we're in the run mode and our auto load and auto save are active. Now let's explain auto save. This is covered in the operating manual, but auto save primarily means that when the organ is in run and anyone at the console alters a combination file by using the set piston or a combination of the set and range and combination action pistons, that any of those changes will automatically be saved in the current file that is loaded. Now you can turn this off. For example, if you had someone that was coming over that was going to play the organ and you didn't want them to mess up any of your combination files, you would just type auto load, press the enter key, and now notice that it is turned gray, which means that, oops, sorry, autosave is what we were talking about. Yeah, autosave has been turned off. And so now any changes that they made in the combination action settings would not be written to the file. So that when the organ was turned off or when the file was reloaded, then the changes that were made would go away. Now, if autosave were active and your guest organist were to go in and change the combination files, they would be permanently overwritten. And now there is a feature in the system, even with autosave enabled, that allows you to go in and reclaim a saved file and restore it to its original state within one save. Now, what happens is if we do a directory of the combination files, dir-c for combination, then anytime the file is saved, it will time and date stamp it. And also, what it does is it makes a backup file of the original file. So you see here on Sunday at 7:30 of the year 2000, this file was changed. If we look at down at C1 back, the last time it was changed was Tuesday on February 9th of 1999. So what we could do is we could go in and delete this file and restore this file, c1.back, to become the new C1 file, and those changes would be restored. So what we would do is we would type erase C1, and that will erase that file from 730.00. And then we would type rename c1.bak space to C1. Rename c1.bak to C1. And let's try that again. We don't type the full. Rename. See, we're not doing this from a script. We're doing it live. Rename c1.bak to C1. There we go. Finally. Illegal. Okay. What did we do wrong? Oh, spelled it wrong. Rename C1. We're going to get this right yet. BAK to C1. Trying to think, type, and talk at the same time. Doesn't always work. Okay, what we did is we renamed the C1.back backup file to C1. So if we do a dir-c, then you'll see that we have no C1.back anymore because we've renamed it. and we called it C1, and then now it has restored it back to its February 9th, 1999 date. So any file that is changed, combination files, definition files, etc., they will all, when they're first changed, a backup file of the original will be made, and you have one save to go back and restore it. The next time you write over a combination file and save it, then that previous copy becomes the backup and your original will be gone. So just keep in mind that if you have a file that is changed, you can go back one time to recover it. Same with autoload. If we type autoload, now we've turned things back on. So anytime we go in and select a new user, we select an organist. What that will do is, if we bring up the list, then and we select Alabama, for example. Now you'll notice down here, I'll bring this up so everyone can see it. User changed to Uniflex Alabama. New D1 and C1 files were loaded. That's because the autoload was turned on. So now if we type autoload and turn that off, and it tells us down here that autoload has been turned off. And now we bring up the organist. It's going to take a little longer because I've modified the screen. And I come over here to General, where we left from. Okay, what it did is autoload was not active, so it did not load a D1 and C1 file like it did when we changed from General to Alabama. Okay, so the autoload prevents the system from automatically loading a file. So what you want to do is either turn the autosave on or off, and you can do that anytime you want. So depending on what you have in mind, if you want to keep the same user file, keep the same definition file and combination file when you move around from user to user, you can do that by turning the auto load off.